Okay, now I want to talk about the differences between an external MIDI track and an internal. So you go over here. First I'll play something here. Get a click track going. Come back up here. So, 180 beats per minute. Okay, I'm going to create a MIDI track. This is a software instrument. Remember before we took external MIDI for the Yamaha Motif, but this represents all the plugins inside your machine. So we double click that and we got it defaults to electric piano. I put an internal MIDI track here in the program, and it's an easy drummer drum beat. I played it myself over here. Okay, so I put that up here, and here's the Motif Rack one, right? And here's what it sounds like. Now watch what I do when I render this to music, which used to be iTunes in Logic or in Apple. So we go up to here and go track, we go to file, we come down to share, and then we select song to music. Okay, opens up this. I called it the Yamaha Motif Rack example, and I'm gonna render this. Watch what happens. It puts it over here, right? What do you notice? It's only playing the drums. It's not playing the piano. It's not playing the piano part. So what I wanted to highlight there is, for internal MIDI, you don't have to bounce them down when you render to WAV files over here, or whatever they call the Apple AIFF ones. But for anything from an external synthesizer, which is what this is, or a Phantom or a Montage keyboard, those are external. They won't render when you render it. So you go, what happened to my piano? That's where printing an audio track comes in. This audio cable is for going into channel 5 on my Scarlett. You're basically going to see a recording, an audio track coming down here. We go track, new tracks. Now instead of creating either an internal MIDI or an external MIDI, we come over here to audio. This is what you're going to render eventually. So we double click that, right? Now that opens up a channel under the, see where it says Motif Rack External? I just opened a audio channel. Okay, what I did was I opened up that audio track. See how close we can get in. This is the audio track. It represents the input 5 on the Focusrite. So we hit that. We go to input. We have to take the same input. We're coming out and going in on 5. So we hit 5. And let me move the mixer out of the way. Come back up. Make sure you hit the R. Okay, so now we're ready. We're basically going to record this MIDI track up here, this external MIDI track. We're going to record it down here. So when I hit record, watch what happens. It should start printing. It's called printing an audio track. my arm's killing me. Okay, so we stopped it. So it printed an audio track. Now watch what happens when I mute the Motif Rack external MIDI thingy. So this is the MIDI. This is still changeable. You can do all kinds of stuff with it. You can even open up Logic and put Logic plugins in it to replace these notes. So you can replace it with anything: a saxophone from Logic, a synthesizer from Logic, more sounds from the Motif, because it's still executable. There's still MIDI events, but this is the one that won't render over to iTunes or music. So we come here. Wait, we hit enter. It should work. Wait a minute. It's not working because I inadvertently hit the mute key. This wouldn't happen on the Tascam DP24, man. Okay. Watch. I guess I should start using these, right? Let me see. Yeah, it's supposed to work. It takes a while. There it goes. So we're using this one. We can even get rid of this one now. But you want to save it, but keep it muted, because every time you open up an instrument here, if you have a bunch of these tracks open over here, they're all going to want to play at once. So you have to, this is kind of the pain in the ass part of external MIDI. You got to play a MIDI track, have MIDI events, then you got to record it back to itself down below under it, and then mute this one. But you can keep this active, just mute it. So in case you want to use more external MIDI tracks from another synthesizer, put it down here somewhere, right? It's going to go here. Now watch what happens when I render again. So I'm going to render another one. File, we want share, this is Logic. We go song to music, used to be iTunes. So we're going to render again. We'll call it something else. I think that should do it. Alright, so now, voila, it's playing. You can eventually bounce these. This is internal MIDI, and you don't have to bounce it. Sometimes people will bounce their tracks or they'll freeze them. Like this iMac has an i5 processor, so it freezes up once I get around 20 tracks or 15. So then I either freeze tracks or I render them and bounce them down to audio. But once you bounce them to audio, if you don't save them, you can't edit this anymore. So you might want to, if you got a really powerful computer, you can just leave them all internal MIDI. It should be fine. But if it slows down your computer, you either freeze them or bounce them down to audio. And when you bounce them down to audio, I'm probably getting ahead of myself, but when you bounce stuff down to audio, all those little colors will turn gray and you can't fix them anymore. You saved it, it's audio. Unless you saved the tracks as MIDI and just hid them, you can hide them in the program. That's what I do sometimes. Now what I did here, I made a copy of this external MIDI track down here. So these are the same, right? And watch what happens. See, they both play. I muted it, now I open it up. The reason this is a problem, because if you try to open more external MIDI tracks, it's going to play that one sound in all of them. Yeah, so you can mute this guy. I muted this one, I come back here. And then when you're satisfied with that saxophone, then you just create another audio track by creating another audio track. That's where it gets a little trickier with external synthesizers. You got to create a MIDI track, then you have to have an audio track for every MIDI track you create. Now you could just take this out of the equation and not even use it, and then all you'll have is external MIDI tracks like this Easy Drummer track up here. And that's a little more advantageous, but you're stuck with all the sounds in Logic, which isn't fine because if you got Contact and all the other great plugins that are out, I mean, you don't really need this or Studio B over there, the Tascam, but you know, those are just some of the different ways of recording. And again, this is a synthesizer, so you could hook up a Phantom by Roland or a Montage, and that's how you could get all their sounds. You'll hook it up basically the same way, a 5-pin MIDI and an audio jack going over there and the MIDI coming back. All right, man, thanks. Have a good time out there, whatever you're doing.